I am moderator, joined by Wingnut Cross after the break. We have Goonswarm bringing a drone composition with triple EOS, double Ishtar, double Deacon, double Sentinel for tracking disruption, and a Tormentor. Wingnut?
Me- Meanwhile, Tissue has brought a Ham Claymore Rush with their flag Nightmare, Orthrus, double Jackdaw, triple Griffin. So we have missiles and ECM versus drones and tracking disruption. This is a very like they've essentially brought like the same comp, just different ways. I like this.
Interestingly enough, we see exactly zero turret hard points for guns on any of those Galente drone boats from the Goon team. And we see already there are Valkyries being dropped, so these will not be a sentry comp. Already, Tormentors going across
Look at those
the field
claymores.
and then du- doubling back as they're putting their drones on what appears to be the Jackdaw of Captain Jack 123.
Yep, those claymores are absolutely screaming in. You see tracking disruption on one of the claymores, one of the Orthruses, and the Nightmare. ECM is going out into both the Sentinels. So yeah, these claymores are going to try and rush in. It looks like they're falling behind a little bit. They're trying their best. Meanwhile, a Jackdaw Captain Jack is currently being pounded with, I'm assuming, the drone cloud.
Yeah, so interesting enough, Captain Hans Bodderstad was standing still for a little bit, not quite sure what that's about. Meanwhile, the Claymore of Blood of Gods is solidly on top of one of the Eoses here. Hasn't tackled anything
Well,
just
yeah, here's the
yet. You would
problem
expect
here.
to see that.
He gets in range, like, oh, I'm gonna get the tackle. I'm gonna get the tackle. Here's the problem: every single drone you're looking, every single ship you're looking at has newts. Both EOSs have newts. The Ishtars probably have newts. Like even the Essentials have newts. The moment he gets close, all his capacity gets immediately sucked dry, and there's nothing he can do.
Yeah, and that's a very awkward position to be in, especially if you're a shield ship that's relying on your ancillary booster and having resist modules to be able to sustain that. Thinking of Speaking of things that are sustaining, we see Joe Custer cycling through his ancillary shield booster as
He's
he's
trying.
being absolutely swarmed by a cloud of heavy drones, just trying to outpace those, and it's not working out for him so far. He's used about half of his charges at this point.
Yep. So they've actually sent out a bunch of berserkers as their first set of drones, I believe, as well as some praetors and other bits. And that's actually pretty cool to be able to keep up with the scimitar. I honestly, these jackdaws probably want to start focusing on removing these drones, try and save the scimitar and remove the DPS. Meanwhile, the
Okay,
EOS actually of Dirk is about to go pop.
yeah, so Joe Custer has overheated the cycle on his MWD, it would appear, and he's currently outpacing. But no, he's taking a hard turnaround, and he will get caught up by some drones. It would appear that obviously Tishy gets the kill on this first EOS, but those drones are no longer tracking after uh, that scimitar.
Yeah, they're trying their best, but it's just not working. And of course, these jackdaws can also, if they decide to, start popping off these drones as well. They look like they're going for the Tormentor. I suppose Tormentor's grabbed someone has been quite irritating. But at the moment, this is not looking good for Goons. They should have killed things real quick with those drones. It's just not doing anything.
Yeah, so the Tormentor had gotten on top of Blood of Gods, and his Claymore makes sense that you would want to kill that to free up the Claymore. Um, Hams not known for their long range, but do excellent damage when you get close up. It seems like the heavy drones have caught up with Joe Custer. It's like watching a swarm of angry bees just follow you after you've angered, the goons. Ironically, by taking over their hive, and Joe Custer's down into hole now, just cycling an MWD to be able to get out of there. And so
It's a bit
far,
late.
for losing that scimitar in just a second here, the side of Psychotic Tendencies has basically cleared out the support wing of Goonswarm.
Yeah, and one of the DPS ships as well. And that Custer's still alive. He's definitely overheated his micro drive for the last cycle. There he goes. He gave as much as he could on that ship. I bet you that micro drive was burnt out by the end. Here's an interesting note, by the way. So obviously the Nightmare and the two Claymores are rushing in. I just realized the Nightmare actually has a smart bomb. So that's actually a nice perfect count against his drone comp. An A being ship that can smart bomb. That's brutal. It looks like the Ishtar's now being destroyed. The Ishtars, I'm pretty sure, have their ADC, but it doesn't make a difference. Just they
Yeah,
just can't they can't
that
run
Ishtar
away.
was being held down by claymores, and it was just getting absolutely pounded. I mean, two deacons do provide excellent repair, but they're not going to survive through the amount of damage that Tissue had. We saw it go down rather quickly. It is still a cruiser hull after all, and Blood of Gods no longer having any scimitar support is taking an appreciable amount of damage as this cloud of heavy drones is catching up with him. Meanwhile, Charlemagne is down into low armor, and
And he just fired
it
his
looks
ADCU off, so he's out of that now too.
yeah, and it looks like Reaver Geist, I believe, one of the long-term logistics pilots for the Imperium, has been taking a good amount of light missile damage and some hostile drone damage, but I think she's catching up now. She's been able to outpace a lot of these missiles, and her partner Jory Castle has been keeping her up right now.
And honestly, the absolute props of this match has to go to Joe Custer in that scimitar. He spent so long and burnt his props just right and kept himself going for long enough that by the time they finally finished him off, they had lost a significant chunk of useful ships. They've still got a good core of DPS left, but they'd lost their tracking disruption and they'd lost like 1/3 or maybe 1/4 their DPS. They're trying now. They might actually get Blood of Gods down now. He's starting to go low, but he might be waiting to cycle.
So getting rid of Blood of Gods would be critical because that's going to be some links that would take resistances off of the field. And if you're tissue, if you lose that claymore, it's going to be more difficult to kill the Ishtar, kill any of the two deacons that are on the field right now. Um, and it looks like Blood of Gods is actually hitting an ASB reload. We see his shield spiking back up. So he's used a couple of his charges. Meanwhile, the Stampede in his EOS is absolutely getting eviscerated. We see that he's basically being sat on top of by this nightmare who's hard nuding him. He might have had his active tank just completely shut off.
Yeah, that Claymore now, he's managed to. I think he's using XLSP. He's managed to wrap right back up. And he's just, yeah, they've killed the second EOS now. They've got this. Like, bravo again to Tissue. Pulling off, honestly, I didn't think it would go their way, but doesn't matter. Just rush in, baby.
Yeah,
And
I
slapping
can't
their
help but
Nightmare on the table,
wonder
too.
how much jamming these griffins have actually been able to get successfully. I mean, you would be absolutely infuriated if you're just a drone pilot that's getting locked out, or more specifically, maybe the griffins are just choosing to use their jammers on individual drones. Um, it would be one thing that you could do to significantly mitigate incoming damage. I'll be interested to hear what the strategy exactly was for Psychotic Tendencies, but we've seen jam effects on most of the Goon core for a good portion of this match, and maybe some of the jams on top of the Deacons was enough to be able to break through the reps of the EOS and the Ishtar that did eventually go down.
I just think it's just pure DPS, to be honest. Like, 2 Claymores and a Nightmare, plus, Rapid Lights from the Authoress as well. That's a lot of damage you can't just ignore. And yeah, they've honestly done amazing well. The last EOS is about to go down. The Deacons are still alive, but just showing it doesn't really matter.
And one other thing I would
Bravo.
like to highlight from Joe Custer, the other masterful thing he did was that when he died, he basically put himself on the opposite side of the arena from the rest of his core. So that means that the drones that had killed him had to then slowly crawl across the arena to apply to their next target. And that bought Tissue a significant amount of time to work through those EOSs and Ishtars.
Yep, that's honestly like Joe Custer, absolute MVP in this match, like entirely. He managed to keep that ship alive for far longer than it deserved. There may have been other ways these drone comps could have perhaps like countered that issue, maybe like abandoning drones and setting more. But in the end, I don't think it's going to matter. Like they haven't lost by a little bit. They've got absolutely utterly destroyed. These Griffins are still alive. Apparently, ECM is superior to tracking disruption and nukes.
Yeah, I mean, the commentators and some of the analysts have been counting out Tissue, but they've been absolutely demonstrating through the feed rounds and through these last couple matches that they're here to stay. They belong in the Alliance tournament, though they will no longer be part of the perfect record club. I don't think that will bother them too much, having only lost one ship for the entire core of Goonswarm. Um, really excellently played in a kiting setup, and then being able to mix that in with some brawling with the Claymores and Nightmare. A little bit different than anything we've seen so far. Psychotic Tendencies having been one of the few teams that chose not to opt for a flagship Barguest. I'm sure the analyst desk will have plenty to say about that one. So, from myself and Wingnut, goodbye.